What a blessing it is for us to be Catholic and in San Francisco with this glorious Cathedral of St. Mary of the Assumption. It's bold, it's imaginative, and it perfectly expresses what the Church has been discerning for a long time now since the world moved into this modern era. How can the Church better communicate the timeless, eternal, indeed, truth of the gospel in the world that we're living in today?
I'm Father Art Albano, the pastor rector of Our Lady of the Assumption Cathedral here in San Francisco.
My name is Andrew Galvin. I was present at the dedication of the cathedral in 1971.
I was the sacristan at the cathedral when it opened and worked here for several years.
I'm Mary Ann Murray, and I've been a docent at St. Mary's Cathedral in the school program since 1987.
And I'm Lenore Heffernan, and I also have been a school docent since 1985, since the beginning of the program.
My name is Pedro Garcia Mendez. I founded an organization by the name of Cruzada Guadalupana de San Francisco.
I remember the Holy Family Sisters being here as sacristans, and that's how we would always get in the back door. Sister Michaela, Sister Marie Deering.
We worked in pastoral ministry wherever we went. We never taught in schools. We didn't work in hospitals. We centered our lives on pastoral ministry. We focused on families, and they were our main concern. And the things that we could do for them to make their lives more unified, more joyful, more full of faith. And we would never turn anyone away who was not Catholic or not have faith. All people are God's children, and we hope we always remembered that. But our lives were dedicated particularly to poor families. Our sisters were founded at St. Mary's Cathedral at the first one, Old St. Mary's in Chinatown, and that was in 1872. When I was a young woman in high school, I used to come up here to go to Old St. Mary's on Sundays because I loved the building and I found it very special. I didn't know why. When I found out later on, when I entered the community, that our community was founded there, I knew what that special feeling must have been. The middle cathedral, the one that burned down, I used to go there to kind of help fill in. But I do remember one of my talents was I paint, I draw. And when Archbishop McGuckin was coming, I remember painting his coat of arms that was going to be used.
Well, Bishop would always start with McGuckin. Yeah, let's talk about him. I just think McGuckin had a presence. He was the builder. And if you ever saw him with Monsignor Beau, the pastor at the time, and Monsignor Burns, they were like a small cluster group that really made sure this happened. And then with Bishop Guilfoyle with them too. They came from a particular generation of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, even into the 50s. But they are the epitome of a missionary bishop in the 1970s post-Vatican II. Because they attended the council, and then they came and they implemented the council. And it's interesting, as now, having lived a long life, I look back and think about, the outcome of the council, but to have lived it and to implement it.
This cathedral encapsulates that vision because it is very vertical. We must always be looking up. We must always keep our vision fixed on heaven. And the whole architecture of the building sweeps us up into heaven. But it is also horizontal with the design of the windows that look out on the city. So the church must always keep our eyes fixed on heaven and lead people there. We also must be looking out and around to interact with the world, to help to engage the world.
Bishop McGuckin very much knew San Francisco. He knew California. And he was somebody very special to look at. And he had a deep voice. I remember his deep voice. And so, yeah, he had a presence.
I remember the demonstrations, but those protests didn't really begin until the building was well underway. Monsignor Beau used to say that this was the cathedral that God must certainly have wanted very much, because it was built and occupied and used despite all the barricades or barriers that seemed to be in the way, because the city was asking that had to guarantee parking for at least 500 cars. So of course the city is quite compact, and there wasn't a lot of land. So he took a medal of Our Lady of Guadalupe and came over. There was a Safeway here, and of course the Cathedral High School for the Charity Sisters, and buried the medal of Our Lady of Guadalupe here. And he told her if she got the property for him, she'd have the first shrine. So he did, and she did.
One of the reasons that Our Lady of Guadalupe image is here is because Monsignor Bowie, who was in charge at the time, he asked the intercession of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and he asked her to please help him up with this huge job that was ahead of him. And if he sees that he was helped by her, he promised her to be everybody that is coming into the church, the first thing the people will see is her image, and that's why it's there.
Indeed, I have a great love and deep devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe. I pray to her every day. What really impresses me with the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe is the inclination of her head, looking down upon the people. That is a look of compassion and mercy to the people. It's looking down upon any devotee or any person who approach her.
She, being the Mother of God, God always listened to her, and that's why we all confidence is with her. I'm not comparing myself to Juan Diego because he's a saint, and I'm not a saint. God probably chose me to be Our Lady Guadalupe messenger over here at St. Mary's Cathedral, and I'm proud of it, and I feel happy. That's why every time I come here, I feel at home. Very good. Because it's my home. It's our home.
My name is Francis James Patrick McGovern. What I did in this cathedral, I worked for a local company from San Francisco, Emmanuel Manufacturing. I was fortunate to get the job. Because of my skill, I'd worked in several countries using different types of wood for different purposes, farm work. So when I got a job like this, I get a great thrill of what I was doing, and I'm a Catholic. The main job that we did the walls, the soundproof walls that you see around here. They're scattered all around. They're made of laths of wood, and the purpose was to drown sound bouncing off the concrete and spoiling the sound system in the cathedral. So these panels were soundproofing panels. So we lifted the complete panel, about 5 feet square. But this panel here, I put this one up. I put them all up. I helped them all up. Behind this panel is a material that absorbs sound. If I can draw your attention to, the structure, but it's made of marble, 300 feet tall, and it's got 8 sides, and the outside is covered in marble, Italian marble. And it's as good today as when I first saw it years ago. To fit in together like the closest jigsaw you ever had. Like some ingenious computer measured it, my life's ambition was to work in a church. For a big job like this, for me to be in, so enjoyable, I almost let slip then I'd rather work for my wages and work for nothing, but I never got that far.
I hope that when people come into the cathedral, no matter when, they see those great arms of prayer lifting the cathedral to God. Those great cement pillars are held in the position of the official prayer of the church when the priest stands and raises his arms to pray for the world, for the community. Those concrete pillars hold the building up in that position. The windows, the elements, the south with its beautiful window of yellow golden light that faces the south, the wonderful sunset windows on the west, the green headed looking toward the Central Valley on the east, and the water window in the front, which not as many people notice because, of course, the beautiful scene of bronze is on the outside of the building there, and sometimes they're so caught up with the look of the windows that surround that they don't notice as much the blue. But then all those windows go up, 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 and at the top of the cathedral they blend into the golden cross that is at the top. The baldacchino is a symbol of God's raining down His graces on us. And if they listen, if there's enough air moving in the cathedral, if they listen, they hear those aluminum bars strike each other, and there's notes of music and joy from that baldacchino. So the whole building, the original elements, earth, air, fire, and water, united in the cross, the lifting up of the building toward God, His grace and wonderful care for us raining down as symbolized through the baldacchino. This whole building is an act of worship, and the people that come in are surrounded by the beauty of it. And we always hoped, all of us that worked here, always hoped that people felt lifted up and inspired by the beauty of it. The whole building sings a song of praise. That is what I hope everyone who enters the building feels, no matter when they come. The first thing I remember was we didn't have an altar yet. What we had was a plywood model of what the altar would be like. And the plywood model was on the predella. We had masses down here in the lower cathedral. Now, Monsignor Beau always said, if it's that expensive, you don't call it a basement. So we always said it was the lower cathedral. So we had Mass down here in these halls with that wooden altar until the brickwork was finished and we could go into the upper stories.
It was a colossal piece of marble, and it was there one morning. Where did that come from? Came from the same place all the marble did? Yes. From Italy.
The wooden altar, the same size and shape as the present marble one. The wooden altar was up on the predella, and Monsignor Beau, of course, with the cathedral priests, and that would have been Kirby Hansen, Jerry Horan, Mike Keene.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like a WW2 vet because they keep reporting how many died this month and how many are left that actually lived through it. I actually was here on May the 5th, 1971, and I attended the dedication Mass. I was at St. Joseph's High School, Mountain View, and the high school and the college, St. Patrick's College, we were here as the choir. And that's how we got in, and we got very good seats. We were seated over by where the organ is today. I think that's still the section where the choir sits. And that's where we were seated. So we had pretty good seats up front. We got here early so we could get into the place and get positioned.
Oh, I was something gorgeous. Yes, indeed. I was here at the first Mass at 5th of May, 1971, and it was a full house. The cathedral was packed, and which that makes us happy. And it was for myself, it was a great experience. Before, I never was in a service that big, and I was thinking that I was out of this world, you know. My wife, fortunately at that time, we were just newly married, and we were just newly over here in San Francisco also, so we actually start our marriage life here in San Francisco.
My most unforgettable moment was when I celebrated my 45th anniversary of my ordination to priesthood. In that occasion, people all the way from around the Bay Area, they came to celebrate with me here at the cathedral. Well, their presence indeed is their manifestation of their appreciation and love for the priests.
I think one of my most memorable moments here at the cathedral was my brother's ordination as a deacon. The same ceremony, Randy Calvo was ordained deacon. John Wester was a year ahead of them, so John was a deacon at the ordination ceremony. It was a huge crowd. I think there were like 30, 35 guys in the group. And the bishop who did the ordination came from Guam. He was guest of Randy Calvo. So because that was the most emotional in our family, we had waited forever for my brother's ordination.
Ordinations are always a great joy. It's always a great joy for me to ordain priests and deacons, and one bishop that I ordained here in the cathedral. Those are always highlights. Then the other great liturgical events, the church jam crowded every year, is the great Cruzada Guadalupana, when the faithful arrive here at the cathedral after processing for some 8 hours, arrive here at 2 o'clock. That wonderful love for Our Lady, devotion to Our Lady Guadalupe, and her love for the people of Mexico, and the people of Mexico's love for her, is such a great joy. And the other event is, of course, the Mass we have before the Walk for Life West Coast, when we see people gathered from far and wide coming here to manifest on behalf of the sanctity of human life, and the abundance of young people who come, who are proclaiming the gospel of life. These are events that really lift my heart and make me very happy to be able to be the Archbishop here.
Well, it was a sad moment, simply because it was a mayor, and he was very modern, as it were. You know, he was well liked in the city, and the death was a tragedy because it wasn't just him, but it was also Supervisor Harvey Milk, and so there was tears, as there always is when somebody dies. But when a political leader like that, a younger gentleman, he wasn't an old man, so, you know, it was an early death, and it was tragic. And what I remember was the saddest, for me, the saddest part, I believe, was the prayers of the faithful. His children were involved, and one of the daughters standing at the ambo, trying to, you know, say a prayer, but she just broke down. And that's it. When you see the family crying, that's what touches everybody, because I never met Mosconi. I didn't know him, but I knew of him. And to see his own daughter weeping the tragic loss of her father, it was very sad. Mother Teresa came here, you know, because the Holy Father had charged her to be his advocate for the unborn. Mm-hmm. And I remember her plea was, please don't abort the baby. If you don't want it, bring it to me and I will raise it. And it was so powerful the way She did that. And to remember later the commentary that most people said, most people will talk about doing good, but Mother Teresa did it. She just did it. She didn't have to say certain things. And the simplicity of herself, her presence. And so, I can say on 2 occasions, the only 2 canonized saints that I know I saw when they were alive, Pope John Paul II and Mother Teresa here in the cathedral. So I met him here. He didn't have a Mass here at the cathedral. He came to do a talk. Right. I was at Mission Dolores and said farewell to him and sent him off this way.
In 1989, when the first 12 of December celebration officially in Spanish was the first event over here, and I was very surprised when that day came, December 12th. The cathedral was packed the same way it was in 1971, the 5th of May. And I knew who was working on that, Our Lady Guadalupe. So everybody helped me up to. By the way, I asked to do this to Archbishop Quinn in peace he rest. I asked Archbishop Quinn to support me on this, to help me up on this, and I asked for his green light. And he said, sure, let's go do it. With one condition, Pedro, that I celebrate the Mass. And he was very happy when he saw the cathedral packed. So it was a great experience. That's another good memory on myself.
I think the school docent program, I am so much in favor of it. It brought the children to the cathedral, and with the children, very often the parents. So it really introduced the cathedral to the city. And that I thought was just an invaluable thing to do. And the children loved being here. They were well behaved and seemed to absorb what we told them, which was quite remarkable. So
we firmly believe that it was very important for the school children to have a positive church experience, and we brought them in with that in mind. The docents were very enthusiastic. The kids were prepared in advance. We sent materials out to the schools, so they didn't entirely come in cold. The teachers were extremely helpful, and as Lenore said, the parents too were interested and participated. Oftentimes the parents asked as many questions as the students did. And of course, lunch served afterwards was the ultimate hospitality. Keep the program strong, keep it growing, and just maintain it as best you can to serve as many in that area as possible.
Many people don't appreciate the architecture. It seems too modern for some people.
I have to confess, I have fallen madly in love with the cathedral. It gives me great peace to be there, any place in the cathedral at any time. It is serene, it is peaceful, it is calming. I have grown to absolutely love it. So I don't want to hear anything negative about the cathedral.
I started out loving the cathedral. I loved it from the very beginning when it was being designed, and I love it, the feeling of peace that I get when I'm there, and I just wanted everybody to love it as much as I did.
It's very much like going for a walk in the city, right? Such a beautiful city. We cannot but keep our eyes looking up at the beautiful houses, the hills, the gardens, and the parks. But it's a very congested city, so we better be looking forward and around.
I hope that the interviews that we do and the displays that we put up and so forth can help people to realize how special this building is and why it belongs to everyone.
I always tell the children at the end of my talk, I don't care what you go away with, what you remember, the one thing you have to remember is that This is your cathedral. It belongs to you, to all of the people in the Archdiocese of San Francisco. It is your mother church.
It's a piece of magic, from the ground to the tip top of the cathedral.
Every time I come here, I feel at home. Very good. Because it's my home. It's our home.
Well, the first thing I'd like anyone is to remember, if it's possible, to do the math. How many times has Mass been offered in this facility? That's the miracle of our church, of our faith. How many countless times has the Mass been offered in this place? How many times have deacons and priests and bishops been ordained here? And how many times have the sacraments of baptism, confirmation, marriage, the sacrament of penance, how many times have all those sacraments been offered here? And then to think about all that stuff, all the prayer, all the times that God has been present to people in different ways, how many times have we walked out those cathedral doors, nourished by the Eucharist, and we go out to follow that command to go and spread the good news? What's important is how many times the community is gathered for worship and how many times people have shared their understanding of Eucharist in this place.
It isn't a church that belongs to church people only. It's a cry of joy from creation for anyone who comes in the doors.
The roots go way back. The roots go back to 1853 when the Archdiocese was established. The roots go back to 1776 when the first Mass is said over in the Mission Dolores era. The roots go back to the time of the arrival of the Europeans and the Christian message in Central and South America. And it goes all the way back to the flowing waters of the Jordan. What makes Christian worship Christian is that we gather together to worship as a family. We gather together across time and space. So 50 years from now, in 2071, maybe I'll still be here. Well, it's going to be the same Jesus on that altar that the priest calls down in 2071 that was called down in 2021.
This is how the church needs to live and evangelize in the world today, keeping always our vision fixed on heaven, but looking around, reading the signs of the times as the council told us to do, and in order to better engage the world and draw people into the encounter with Christ. I would like to be remembered as a pastor of souls, an archbishop who cared for the people entrusted to his pastoral care, loved them as a father, and did everything he could with his severe limitations to show them the Father's love.
Here at the cathedral, I would like to be remembered with my time spent when I'm with the people, to show them that I am there for them.
As a kind and considerate person, and a caring person.
Definitely a caring person who tried to give a little bit back.
The way I would like them to remember me is that my faith is part of my vitamins that I need to keep up living, and this is what I'll be giving to everybody. And please remember me that way, and ask always Our Lady Guadalupe to bless me wherever I am.
I hope that we are remembered as being people of prayer who stood and worked for the marginalized, especially poor families, that we worked to keep families together.
When people ask me, who are you? I'll often say, well, I'm a person trying to live a Christian life. And that dumbfounds them because that's not the answer they wanted. They wanted to hear, oh, I'm the curator at Mission Dolores. That's my goal, and that's how I like to be remembered, as a person who tried to live out a Christian life. And that's a difficult challenge. The 7 virtues: faith, hope, and charity, justice, prudence, temperance, and fortitude. How did Andy Galvin live out those 7 virtues? And I would hope I make the mark. You know, I may not have lived them to a heroic degree like a saint, but at least if I tried to live them, I think when I face my Maker, I would get a fair judgment.
I'm very grateful for all those who made this cathedral possible and continue to make it possible. It's always a joy for me to celebrate a Mass here, just the regular Sunday Mass. We see the great diversity of our Archdiocese here at the Cathedral, and that is always a great joy. So it's a message of gratitude for those who made this cathedral possible, not just the buildings, but the community and those who continue to do so.
It's not just the building itself, but the faith in their heart, in their mind, in their life. So just keep on working on our faith, and the faith moves mountains. And never think that the job is finished. No, for our life and in faith is never ends.
There's one thing we want you to remember as you leave this cathedral, that it is yours. This is the Mother Church of the Archdiocese. It is your church, and you please feel free to come here anytime you like, and to bring your families and share the joy of the cathedral with them.
When you come to the cathedral, the most important for you to do is to pray. You know, like the ceiling of the cathedral that rose up high, so let your spirit soar up to the heavens. You are the living stone. We are the living stones of the church.
I loved my time at the cathedral, and I hope that its beauty and its ability to stir us to prayer continues forever.
Many people made great sacrifices in order to build this cathedral, so a new monument of beauty to the glory of God rose from the ashes of the previous cathedral that had burned down. It's thanks to their great generosity, sacrifice, and vision. Now it's our turn to make our own contribution. So I would pray that our people will be generous stewards of the blessing that God has given to them, that they might use their gifts, their talents, their time, talent, and treasure, everything that God has given to them to contribute to the work of the cathedral, building up the kingdom of God, building up the body of Christ, especially here at our cathedral for the Archdiocese. So future generations might, through the beauty and holiness of this place, come to know Christ and be saved. We are the beneficiaries of the resolve, imagination, generosity, and hard work of those who gave us this truly marvelous set of buildings. It is right that we pause to acknowledge what they have done for us and to commit ourselves to safeguarding and enhancing our St. Mary's Cathedral for future generations.